Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and if you're watching this video on the day that it releases, then happy day number 1 of GoFest. I'm pretty excited for GoFest this year personally. I'm hoping to try and get my first ever Hundo Mewtwo. Unfortunately, my Mewtwo luck has been pretty horrendous so far, but I'm hoping with this GoFest, that can change. In today's video, we're taking a look at some battles submitted to the channel by a member of the community, ZachAttack, who went 14-1 in the Ultra League with a triple Energy Ball team. Shadow Kanto Ninetales, Slurpuff, and Abomasnow. So this is definitely more of an anti-meta team, but 14-1 means this team put up some pretty serious results. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and he picks up a pretty nice lead in the first match, leading Kanto Ninetales into Weezing. Opponent safe switches into Shadow Feraligatr, and that's going to be instantly answered with the Abomasnow. All three of these Pokemon are running Energy Ball, which means if he runs into water types anywhere on this team, they're probably going to be in quite a lot of trouble. Energy Ball is going to be shielded by the Feraligatr and actually does get the defense drop. I believe that's only a 10% chance of occurring, so that is a very rare outcome. Energy Ball number 2 going to be launched. Feraligatr no shields, they get KO'd, and back in comes the Weezing. This Abomasnow is running a pretty interesting moveset choice, opting for Icy Wind over Weather Ball. Icy Wind is more expensive, but it will apply guaranteed debuffs. In the back is Dondozo, one of my favorite Pokemon, but unfortunately it is a bad day to be a water type in the Ultra League. Slurpuff will just get to spam out Energy Balls left and right, and there's really not anything that Dondozo can do. Dondozo is a rare water type that would actually do pretty well into the Ninetales because it actually has water type fast attack pressure. However, unfortunately, it's stuck against Slurpuff, and Slurpuff's pacing is just incredibly strong. Slurpuff should be able to hang on here to the Surf, a pivot out into the Ninetales, as it's counter switched by the Weezing. Weezing can fire off Sludge, but that really does not do a lot in the Ultra League. Ninetales is going to put up the Protect Shield here and look to overfarm. Ninetales will try and leave itself one away from the Energy Ball, so that way it'll be able to connect for super effective damage and take the KO onto the Dondozo. Back in comes Dondozo, and the opponent just immediately top lefted there. They knew Energy Ball was incoming, and that game was over. Hopping into game number 2, but it's a terrible lead. Kanto Ninetales into Zygarde. Insta-save switch into Slurpuff. Zygarde banks some energy, sends in a Thundershock Belly Bolt. Belly Bolt, I imagine, is going to look to shield the first here because they almost always give up shields in exchange for ramping up their defense higher and higher. No shield from the Slurpuff. Ideally, I assume the goal will be to soft lose this matchup and then trust that Abomasnow will be core breaking in the endgame. Another Energy Ball launched by the Slurpuff. Slurpuff does not get same type attack bonus on its charge attacks, and that is a bit of a problem when you're going up against the bulky Pokemon like Belly Bolt that can boost up its defense. Belly Bolt is finally going to fire off some energy. Even just the Parabolic Charge probably knocks out the Slurpuff. And then it's going to be time for Kanto Ninetales to be a damage sponge. Unfortunately, Kanto Ninetales doesn't really have any play into the Zygarde, so the best use of Ninetales is to get crushed by Zap Cannon. Ninetales barely hanging on, able to double up on Weather Balls, and this game is going to be won or lost on the back of Abomasnow. Abomasnow hits the field. In the back is a Shadow Steelix, and this game actually looks winnable. The opponent is incredibly weak to the Abomasnow. Icy Wind is going to land, putting the Steelix at -1. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Hopping into game number 3, we pick up a pretty awkward lead. Shadow Ninetales into Shadow Hippowdon. The save switch into Slurpuff. Slurpuff not going to fire off an Energy Ball, watching for the catch, but the opponent's just going to stay in and go for Weather Ball bait. In comes a Shadow Swanna, and that is an incredibly cool pick. But Swanna, I imagine, probably gets 2-shot by Energy Ball. First Energy Ball does get shielded. Slurpuff going for Energy Ball number 2. Swanna is going to no shield. Swanna unable to get the farm down, but will win charge attack priority over the Slurpuff. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of places for the Kanto Ninetales to go. In comes Abomasnow, but Abomasnow's taking some pretty massive damage here. Abomasnow puts up the shield as Swanna goes for the fly. Abomasnow able to get the farm down, and the opponent reveals their final Pokemon in the back is going to be Shadow Kingdra. Abomasnow is going to have to do some heavy lifting here. Icy Wind is going to land. Abomasnow reaching for the Energy Ball, but not quite able to get there. The shield comes up. It's just a Swift from the Kingdra. Abomasnow going to go for another Icy Wind, hoping the Kingdra will put up the shield. Kingdra does actually respect it. Kingdra now at -2. If they showed Swift, then there's a decent chance that they're not on Outrage. That means Abomasnow will hang on. Abomasnow banks the move. Back in comes Hippowdon, but Ninetales is able to get to the Energy Ball. This is Shadow on Shadow, super effective damage. Energy Ball connects, and it's a charge attack priority tie. This game might be winnable. Earth Power takes the knockout. Abomasnow gets the farm down. Does Kingdra have a move? They do not have a move, and this game will be a win. Honestly, I wasn't really expecting Abomasnow to be the star of the team, but Abomasnow has been core breaking quite a few opponents so far. We move to game number 4, Kanto Ninetales into Stunfisk. I imagine this lead, the more shields that are in play, should be pretty good for the Ninetales. Opponent makes just a devastating catch, catching the Weather Ball on 7 on a Shadow Kingdra. The Weather Ball is rebanked, in comes Slurpuff. Slurpuff is going to do a very nice job at shutting down the Shadow Kingdra. Kingdra goes for the Surf. It looks like Surf will be able to two-shot. Maybe not. If this Energy Ball doesn't take the knockout here, then maybe Kingdra will be able to force a shield. Energy Ball will be shielded, opponent respecting a potential play rough, but now it's just going to be Energy Ball number 2. A double shield from the Kingdra. Kingdra looking to commit to switch advantage, and Slurpuff would have to double shield here as they're doubled up on Swifts, so they're just going to no shield, and in comes Abomasnow. In the back is Sylveon. Sylveon, another Pokemon that did get buffed this season. Sylveon was more so a factor in the NAIC, the Championship Series meta, but it's pretty cool to see a Sylveon in the Ultra League as well. Sylveon is going to full send Shadow Ball. That does do a decent amount of damage, but energy is banked, and there's a quick switch back into the Kanto Ninetales. Ninetales Weather Ball will barely miss the knockout. Unfortunately, the energy from Sylveon will be able to land. Shadow Ball connects onto the Ninetales, and back in comes Kingdra. Ninetales is finally going to have to use its first Protect Shield of the match, but the Energy Ball is available, and Kingdra is easily in range, so this will be able to pick up the KO. Unfortunately, there's still the Stunfisk in the back, and the Stunfisk is loaded. I believe they have 7 Mud Shots worth of energy, but with the Ember Sneak, that means the Ninetales will be able to reach this move on potential charge attack priority. This means this Weather Ball is guaranteed to land. That's good damage onto the Stunfisk. Opponent pivots out. I don't know if they predicted the combo play there, but they were unsuccessful in their prediction. There's a move banked on the Abomasnow, which means this game is over. Sometimes in those endgame scenarios, you have to try and get aggressive, make a bold call, and unfortunately for the opponent, calling that combo play did not end up working out. We move to the next match. What a terrible lead. Shadow Ninetales into Kingdra. Slurpuff save switch is going to be answered with Melmetal. A very good bait out for the Abomasnow, but Double Iron Bash is definitely going to hurt here. Slurpuff no shields. That's not a Double Iron Bash. That's a Rock Slide. The opponent not running the recommended Melmetal moveset. I don't know if they just don't have an Elite TM or they wanted to try and surprise some fire types, but unfortunately by not having Double Iron Bash, they switched into a completely losing matchup. Slurpuff is going to absolutely eat them alive with these Flamethrowers. Flamethrower is going to be forcing a shield. Slurpuff even able to make an Energy Ball. The opponent not familiar with Slurpuff counts, and that's going to cost them both their shields. Energy Ball does get the debuff, and Slurpuff can't be farmed down. It's too bulky. Melmetal forced to fire off the Rock Slide, but it has just all gone wrong for the opponent. They were forced to go down 2 shields to 0. Rock Slide will hit for big damage into the Ninetales, but as always, it's going to be the Abomasnow show. In the back, oh, that's not what you're hoping to see. That is a Volt Switch Fortress. However, having the Weather Ball banked is going to be critical. At this point, the name of the game is just trying to stall out this matchup. With the Weather Ball banked, if you're able to keep the Abomasnow healthy and then snipe with that Weather Ball, then that's going to be the path to victory. Opponent's going to fire off back-to-back Rock Tombs. That's going to be back-to-back shields from the Abomasnow. Opponent tries to call the combo play, but Zach just stays on the field. Stone cold plays. He's double debuffed, but he can't ever afford to pivot out. He's just going to fire off these debuffed Icy Winds, getting more and more chip damage onto the Kingdra. Does Kingdra have Outrage? Even if they do, with their double debuff now, they do have Outrage. Abomasnow barely able to hang on, as it will now go for the harder hitting Energy Ball. This is double debuffs that will put the Kingdra pretty low. Kingdra is going to be forced to pivot out. In comes the Ninetales, and Ninetales is going to snipe down Fortress. Fortress is going to get one shot by the Weather Ball. Back in comes the Kingdra. Does Kingdra have the back-to-back here? If Kingdra has back-to-back Swifts, it's going to win the game, but it's on Surf. That means it does not have enough residual energy, and this game is going to be a win as Abomasnow KOs Kingdra. That was such a technical endgame, trying to stall out the switch timer. Opponent tried to read the combo play, but he just stayed on the field, and even double debuffed had enough damage to get that win. We move to the next match, and we've got a perfect mirror lead, Shadow Canine versus Shadow Canine. This is kind of a slow burner of a matchup. A lot of resisted damage getting fired back and forth. Opponent went for the Weather Ball, and Zach is going to fire off Energy Ball. Energy Ball does do slightly more damage than Weather Ball. Neither charge stack really going to be doing a ton of damage here, but it looks like by firing off an Energy Ball first, 2 Weather Balls after may actually deliver the knockout here. Or maybe a second Energy Ball will be required. I don't have an Ultra League Shadow Kanto Ninetales. I'm not quite sure, but it looks like he has that exact matchup down. In comes Shadow Kingdra, immediate pivot into the Slurpuff, and the opponent's going to stay in here and fire off the Surf. That does do quite a lot of damage. They're going to reveal Florges as their final Pokemon, and Abomasnow is about to go on an absolute rampage in the back. Abomasnow really not a Pokemon that was on my Ultra League radar. I do have a Shadow Abomasnow that is pretty similar IVs to what this battler has, but I've never powered it past level 40. Maybe now is the time, because Abomasnow has just been absolutely deleting these teams so far in this video. They're going to go for the Chilling Water, pivot back into the Kingdra, aggressive pivot out into the Ninetales. Ninetales barely able to hang on and make the last second Energy Ball. That is such a clutch survive for the Ninetales. Opponent ends up no shielding, maybe thinking it was just going to be the Weather Ball, but now there's just no path forward for them in this game. Abomasnow is about to apply so many Icy Wind debuffs onto the Florges. Kingdra falls to the fast move pressure, and this game is over. Florges is walled. They're on Chilling Water and Trailblaze. There's not really anything they can do. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Very tough opponent in the next match, but a very good lead. Shadow Kanto Ninetales into Melmetal. Opponent safe switches into Kingdra, and Kingdra is immediately going to be answered with the Slurpuff. It looks like the Shadow Kingdra can two-shot with Surf, but the regular Kingdra, importantly, cannot. Kingdra just doesn't have the Dragon Breath pressure to let two Surfs pick up the knockout. Energy Ball will be shielded up by the Kingdra. Kingdra going to try and make a play for switch advantage, but Slurpuff just simply does not have the shield. Slurpuff will look to farm up. Energy Ball won't come close to securing the knockout, but is the opponent willing to double shield here? No, they are not. They're going to let that through. Slurpuff able to make a third Energy Ball. The spamminess of Slurpuff. Slurpuff able to take the knockout, and back in comes Melmetal. Melmetal trying for the farm down, but look at Slurpuff go. Another 1 HP survive, making the flamethrower and cooking that Melmetal. Back in comes the Ninetales. In the back is Como-O. Como-O answered with Abomasnow, and this game is over. This poor opponent got absolutely RPS to smithereens, the perfect hard counter. Once the Icy Wind debuff has been applied, even an upper hand wouldn't be particularly threatening here. Abomasnow doesn't have the shield, and Zach knows that he's going to be letting it go. Upper hand is going to land, does get the debuff, but it's just simply too little too late. At a shield deficit, Como-O does not have enough of the tank. Back in comes Melmetal just to get combo played with a Weather Ball from Kanto Ninetales. Down goes Melmetal, and that's a good game. We move to the next match, Shadow Ninetales into Feraligatr. Now this matchup, I'm not quite sure how it plays out in the Ultra League. Zach's going to opt out, he save switches into the Slurpuff, and that's going to be answered with Tinkaton. Unfortunately, this is a pretty rough matchup for the Slurpuff. Slurpuff lands Flamethrower that does do quite a lot of damage, but Gigaton Hammer will come very close to picking up the knockout. Slurpuff puts up the shield, gets the shield call right. Slurpuff continuing to farm, but overfarms too much and lets Tink reach a second Gigaton Hammer. That's going to force the final shield away from Slurpuff. And now Slurpuff is down 2 shields to 0. Opponent's going to no shield. They're always going to take the 2-0 shield advantage with Feraligatr, and it hits the field to be answered with Energy Ball. Energy Ball will get the shield. Feraligatr, I don't know if they can knock out with the Hydro Cannon here. Can Slurpuff survive? Hydro Cannon lands. Oh, that's an easy survive. Slurpuff tanks it like it's nothing. Slurpuff goes for an Energy Ball, getting both shields back. If they try and farm down, unfortunately, they just will be able to. I had hopes for a moment that that would not be a farm down, but it turns out the opponent is just core broken to smithereens by Abomasnow. They pivot in a Zygarde. Zygarde does get a crunch debuff, but they're going to be hit for double super effective damage with Icy Wind. Icy Wind lands. Oh, what a pivot out. In comes the Ninetales. Ninetales gets the Ember down, exits with the Energy Ball loaded, and because this is the Ultra League, Hydro Cannon will not one-shot. Hydro Cannon lands. Easy survive for the Ninetales. This Energy Ball is going to inflict big damage, getting the farm down on Feraligatr, and that's going to be a win. We move to the next match, Shadow Ninetales versus Shadow Weezing. I believe this was the exact matchup that played out in game number 1, but this time the Weezing's not pivoting out, they're staying in. This matchup in the Great League is pretty horrendous for the Weezing, just because Weezing gets outpaced and 2 Weather Balls will clearly two-shot. In the Ultra League, I don't think they'll quite two-shot. Opponent pivots out, they try for a catch onto Dondozo. Somehow another Dondozo. Very, very cool Pokemon to see. But Dondozo is going to be answered with Abomasnow. Outrage, always a devastating charge attack, landing for big neutral damage onto the Abomasnow. Energy Ball will be shielded as Abomasnow is able to make another move. Abomasnow overfarming massively, but so is the Dondozo. Energy Ball number 2 is going to be no shielded, as Dondozo will always be able to hang on. Surf, Abomasnow could hang on to, and they go for the Surf, a critical error. Now, Abomasnow can always throw one in the move, taking advantage of the guaranteed damage registration error. Back in comes the Ninetales as Weezing hits the field, instantly firing off the Weather Ball. Weather Ball is going to be shielded. Ninetales not going to fire off Weather Ball number 2, instead going to go for the Ember. Weezing goes for the brutal swing. Ninetales farms up to the back-to-back. Opponent catches onto Feraligatr, but Feraligatr is about to get absolutely shredded by the Energy Ball. The coverage, the pacing on Kanto Ninetales, it's just simply too good. Energy Ball rocks the Feraligatr. Feraligatr's forced to throw. They can't even farm down. And this game is just over. There's nothing they can do. In comes the Slurpuff. Slurpuff gets the full Fairy Wind farm down, and now just has to make the Flamethrower into that Galarian Weezing. Flamethrower, I imagine even non-stab, will still take the knockout onto the low HP Weezing and get the win. Hopping to the final match, leading Kanto Ninetales into Turtonator, and unfortunately, this is probably going to be the one loss in the 14-1. Turtonator double resists all charge attacks from Slurpuff and the Ninetales, and hits for double super effective into the Abomasnow. Turtonator ends up going for a Brutal Swing bait, which does get called, but this is just an absolute nightmare. What do you do against Turtonator? Nothing the Slurpuff throws can hit for any kind of meaningful damage. Slurpuff fires off the energy balls, but Turtonator just absolutely laughs off that damage. Opponent ends up saving the Turtonator. They pivot into Florges. A ton of energy is saved on the Slurpuff, and now in comes Abomasnow. Florges goes for the Chilling Water right away, so it appears they are walled by the Abomasnow, and they're probably on Trailblaze and Chilling Water. The Abomasnow is double debuff, but at the very least, the Florges is not able to generate a lot of offensive pressure here. The bad news is there's still a loaded Turtonator in the back. Opponent's going to pivot out, revealing their final Pokemon as Corviknight, able to make a beautiful catch and sneak as in comes the Ninetales. Somehow, despite the fact that there's a Turtonator, the opponent has continually switched it off the field, and it still feels like there's a chance this game might end in a win. Air Cutter after Air Cutter, no boost comes through, back-to-back Weather Balls are loaded as Kanto Ninetales is looking to ramp up the damage. No shield comes out from the Corviknight, but they're going to have to shield the second or they lose the Corviknight. They will put up the shield, and there's the Florges right on cue. Again, somehow still not the Turtonator. Florges goes for the Chilling Water, the energy is banked once again, and back in comes Abomasnow. Abomasnow goes for the Icy Wind. Icy Wind should set up a diabolical farm down. This is debuffed and resisted, which means it's just not going to be a problem for the Abomasnow. In comes Turtonator. Abomasnow only going to throw one Powder Snow and the Icy Wind. Shield comes up from the Turtonator. Abomasnow gets Icy Wind number 2. Abomasnow putting on a show, getting damage onto that Turtonator. Turtonator does have so much energy. In comes the Ninetales. Ninetales would survive a double debuff Brutal Swing. Overheat fails to take the knockout. In comes the Corviknight, and there's a quick switch into the Slurpuff. Slurpuff will put up the Protect Shield as Corviknight goes for the Air Cutter. Slurpuff now at 100 energy. Should be 2 Fairy Winds off the Flamethrower. Flamethrower takes the knockout. Back in comes the Turtonator, going for the Energy Ball. Is this going to be enough damage? It's double resisted. Energy Ball takes the KO, and that is one of the best wins I have ever seen in the Ultra League. Incredible gameplay there from Zach. What a win. All in all, these were some incredibly fun battles, so many thanks to Zach for the battle submission. This team is really spicy. When it comes to climbing teams in the Open Ultra League, this is not what I would expect the team to look like. Normally, I would expect a team to have more meta picks like Licky Licky, Tinkaton, but he's running some real anti-meta, and he put on a heck of a show. Shadow Kanto Ninetales actually looks to be a pretty legit Open Ultra League Pokemon. Considering how it absolutely dominates in the Great League, I think that makes sense. The only unfortunate thing for me is I just don't have a good Shadow Kanto Ninetales for the Ultra League. I believe the IVs you want are right around 8-15-15 or 9-15-15, and I've just never gotten one anywhere close to that. Slurpuff, I think it can work in the Open Ultra League, but it's definitely more of an Ultra League fantasy mon, where its coverage is just really good in that meta. In the Open Leagues, its coverage can be nice, but in neutral matchups, not having same type of attack bonus can be a little bit underwhelming. But man, I have to come back to the Abomasnow. I leave this video very impressed with Abomasnow. Abomasnow put in a ton of work. The cheaper grass coverage felt pretty nice in a lot of those matchups against water types, and it was continually able to debuff and really make life easier for the other mons. So after this video, I'm probably going to see if I can power up that level 40 Abomasnow and power that up to 2500 combat power, because it actually looked like a pretty legit anti-meta threat in these battles. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do help support the channel by leaving a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and an extra special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated, so thank you guys oh so very much, and until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.